Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Turd Ferguson 619 podcast. This is episode 3, July 18th, 2017, Tuesday. We got a lot of things to cover. We have to talk about George Romero and as well as Game of Thrones. Let's dive right into it. Let's talk about George Romero, who passed away over the weekend. Very sad. Our condolences go out to his family. George Romero was battling lung cancer. He's known as the godfather of zombies. He made such cult classics as Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead. He did branch out and make movies outside the zombie genre, but he's more recognized for his zombie films. Night of the Living Dead, what can I say about that movie? It's a very scary film. First time you watch it, black and white, that feeling of isolation and being surrounded and just the unknown. Whereas later zombie films, I think, try to more or less explain what caused the zombie virus. This one, it was just that fear of not knowing. There was rumors and speculations. Pretty much it was a zombie film, a horror film that was grounded in reality. Then his follow-up film, Dawn of the Dead, was kind of like a fun action film. It took the viewer for a ride and asked the question, where would you go if there was a zombie apocalypse? Where would you hide and wait out? And it was just a great idea to hide in the mall and just wait for the zombie apocalypse to pass you by. But the problem is that you think you're safe and you're never safe. No matter where you go, danger is just right around the corner, just waiting to breach that unimpenetrable fortress that you think you have. You think you're secure. You think you're safe. And then his trilogy, his conclusion was Day of the Dead. It was once again grounded in reality. It was what happens when there's a zombie outbreak. Well, people would try to hide in a bunker underground and wait it out. But, once again, when you think you're safe, you're not safe. And there was nothing safe about being in an underground bunker. What else can I say about the movie Day of the Dead? It was a conclusion, and what's interesting is that I think the reason why these films have cult status is because he kept trying to do something new, something different with each zombie film. As in with Night of the Living Dead, it was just an ordinary film. It was an ordinary situation. Everybody reacted as they expected to. Dawn of the Dead, it took it to another level where you don't know what's going to happen. But if you were in such a situation, where would you hide out? You'd want to hide out somewhere where you can pass the time, where there's plenty of food, supplies, so you could just wait out and hopefully either the government or some kind of outside force will resolve the issue. And then the third film, Day of the Dead, it kind of borrowed the premise from Dawn of the Dead, as in a secure place, but then it added that evolution to the zombies. Now the threat that is out there, it's not what you think it is. It's not as manageable as you thought, whereas before you were thinking, oh, the zombies, I can outrun them, I can avoid them. At this point, the zombies were evolving. They're starting to realize things. Their human instincts that they had before are coming back to them. And it was a nice twist. And he did branch out and he did try other films, like I said. One of them was Monkey Shine, I believe, and the other film was Creepshow, which was an anthology. He worked with the master of horror, Stephen King. He did do some collaborations with talented people. Tom Savini, makeup artist. But he's most known for being the godfather of the zombie genre, and he's known for those cult films. He did make additional zombie films, but like I said, he's mostly known for his original trilogy. Once they did the remake for Dawn of the Dead by Zack Snyder, and the zombie craze started to boom, he did Land of the Dead, which he tried to follow the Hollywood model of what people expected in a zombie movie, which was an action film. And I'm not sure what he felt about it, but I would think that maybe he wasn't too happy with Land of the Dead because he had to make the film that Hollywood wanted him to make and not his film or his idea, his version. After that, he made Diary of the Dead, which was something that he combined two genres. He took the popularity from the zombie genre, and at the time he took the popularity from found footage, and he made a found footage zombie film, which was a little bit of, I guess, what Hollywood wanted, but as well as what he wanted, because it seems like the kind of films that he tries to make, he doesn't want to make the zombies be the villains, but he wants the audience to feel something for the zombies, that maybe the zombies aren't that bad and they're just misunderstood. It's like, you're out in the wild and you go out somewhere where you shouldn't be and you find a bear, or maybe the bear from the wild wanders into the suburbs and, people overreact, people panic, but it's just the force of nature. And then after that one, he did Survival of the Dead, which in that movie takes place on an isolated island where there's two groups. One is zombie sympathizers, and the other group is people that want to get rid of zombies, that realize that zombies are a threat and they will not return to their original state. So that's a brief summary of George Romero, and it's very sad that he passed away. He'll always be remembered as the man, the myth, the legend, the godfather of zombie films. Our condolences once again to his family. Moving on, what else happened? Sunday was the long-awaited season premiere of Game of Thrones, Season 7, Episode 1, and boy, everybody was excited for this one. We were all excited because Game of Thrones has such popularity. It's a medieval show. It's magic, dragons, sci-fi, politics are involved. You don't know what to expect from each episode. Characters that you become attached to, that you like, leave the show. Characters that you hate, that you boo, end up becoming characters that later on down the season you start rooting for. And this season was very interesting. Season 6 to Season 7, I felt that the show was transitioning from being a medieval political show now to a straight-up action horror medieval show. Such instances, for example, was earlier in the show they had the Battle of the Five Kings, where everyone was trying to control the kingdom as well as sit on the Iron Throne. As far as Season 7, it was a really good episode. It was a good introduction. It's that final transition, the fallout from what happened in Season 6, as well as pretty much they're saying goodbye to the politics and hello to the threat. Earlier in the season, the White Walkers, the zombies, were taking a back seat, and politics were at the front, were receiving the spotlight. And now things are turning around where the politics are going to begin to take a back seat. I believe that the politics are going to take a back seat in the show. And now the zombies are finally going to receive the spotlight. And during the whole season, the politics, the backdoor dealings started dividing everybody, started dividing the kingdom. This is the threat that's going to unite everyone, that's going to make everyone realize that politics is petty. And what's more important, it's not your legacy that matters, but it's persevering, it's outliving the threat. And there were some mixed reactions as far as this first episode. One of the things was people really loved the cold opening. I'm sorry, but there's going to be some spoilers here for Game of Thrones. There's no way around it. It's a really popular show, and to dive into the show that has so many layers, so many different ways of analyzing the show, you have to go into spoiled territory. So that little bit of rambling was a spoiler warning, and now we're going to get into spoilers. So the opening of the show is Arya taking out House Frey, and some people were really excited by it to see how Arya has gone from this little tomboy girl and now she's this master assassin that can take out any target that comes to her mind. She can take it out, and it's a little mix. Like I said, some people were excited about it, and other people not so much. They felt that certain parts of this first episode ate up a lot of time, things that could have been used to explore other things. For example, with Arya, I know it was a very badass, cool scene, but when you think about it, in season 6, Walder Frey, he controls. I forgot what areas he was given to by the Lannisters because he betrayed Robb Stark, the King of the North. And in season 6, the Blackfish returns. He takes over a castle that is supposed to be controlled by House Frey, by Walden Frey. And Walden Frey and his family, his house, cannot retrieve the castle, and they need help. And they need the Lannisters to help them. So Jaime Lannister comes in, devises a plan, and he's able to retrieve the castle for House Frey. But right before Jaime leaves, he lets Walden Frey know that if every time they lose a castle, the Lannisters have to come in and get it for them, why do they need an alliance with the Freys? So this was pretty much a little message saying that the Freys are weak, a weak house, and the only thing that's keeping them together is Walden Frey. So near the end of season 6, when Arya kills Walden Frey, some people pretty much knew that was it. That house was extinct. That house was destroyed. They were going to sing the Reigns of Casimir for that house. It was going to be called now the Reigns of Frey. But I guess there were some people that just weren't sure about it, so that's why they had to add that scene in to explain to the people, okay, Arya has completely wiped out House Frey. They did add that really cool quote that even though maybe some people felt that it wasn't necessary to show Arya completely wipe out House Frey, they added that really cool quote that winter came for House Frey. People love that quote. And then there was also that really long establishing shot of the White Walkers. We pretty much get the idea that the White Walkers are coming. We've seen the Army of the Dead multiple times. Just about every season we get one glimpse, and they showed it again. It seems like they have a budget to work with, whereas in previous seasons you actually get to see the White Walkers as well as where they're roaming about more or less in the north. You get to see the background. But this time you see this big dust cloud, and then you see it for a while, and slowly you see one or two White Walkers, and you see more and more until you see this full army of White Walkers that's made up mostly of the dead people from the north, skeletons, remains, and even giants. So I don't know how the people of Westeros are going to be able to fight giants. It took a lot for Jon Snow, when he was guarding the wall, for them to take out one giant. Now the Night King has 3 giants. Then later we see Sam Tully working at the Citadel. He really wants to know, he wants to get as much information, learn as much as he can to help Jon Snow fight the White Walkers once they make their way past the wall and into Westeros. And they're just overworking this guy. This guy, Sammy's basically a custodian. He has to scrub the toilets. He has to serve the food. He has to restock the books. And all he wants to do is just read. But they just won't let him because they have so many chores for him, so many assignments. And they have that montage that seems that some people might complain that it went on a little long. I think some people are just upset how in previous seasons, season 6, season 5, Sammy's storyline with Gillian took up way too much time, and it was things that they felt ate up or took up time away from other things that could have been shown on Game of Thrones, such as, the Sand Snakes, Dorne. People felt that Dorne took a really, really, really back seat. Practically they were all the way at the end of the train, far back, that nobody could see him. And they were really upset and thought that maybe things regarding Sammy, things regarding Gillian, there could have been less of that to cover more of their favorite houses. So I guess some people will be complaining that the montage went on a little too long, that pretty much they got the point, that Sammy's doing all these chores and it's not what he was promised, or it's not what he romanticized or fantasized that it would be like in the Citadel. But what's interesting is Sammy comes up with this plan that how to get access to the books, and it works out, and he starts reading the books, and he figures out that there is dragon glass in Dragonstone. So he's going to send a raven to Jon Snow. Jon Snow's going to make his way to Dragon Glass, and pretty sure he's going to meet what everyone's thinking, that Jon Snow and Daenerys are going to form an alliance so they could take over the Seven Kingdoms, as well as fight the White Walkers. Because usually with these alliances, it's a give and take. You have to do something for me, and I'll do something for you. So Jon Snow is going to need Daenerys' help to fight the White Walkers. Daenerys is going to need Jon Snow's help to take the Seven Kingdoms and sit on the Iron Throne. Then they introduced a little bit of the politics, which at some point, that's just going to be gone. But the politics are very interesting, the way they do them on the show, and the way that it makes alliances, breaks alliances, makes houses stronger, destroy houses. That Sansa Stark and Jon Snow have a little bit of a dispute as far as how the North should be ruled. And you see those little politics take place. And it seems like Sansa has been learning a couple of things from Littlefinger, because she does tell Jon Snow that he's exactly like father and Robb Stark, and both of those guys lost their heads, and that she needs to play Sansa tells Jon Snow that he needs to learn how to play the Game of Thrones if he wants to survive. And then the long-awaited moment, it took 7 years, and we finally got it. Daenerys returns to Westeros, and it was a well-shot, well-planned scene. It was incredible to see this little girl taken away from her home, sold to a warlord, work hard, climb, make her way back to her home, to Westeros. And they didn't need to add any dialogue. They didn't need to show anything. It was all just done in the actions of the characters, their looks, their nonverbal cues, and it was great just to see, how that scene was done. I don't know what to say. It's something that you think it's easy to do. I've seen other programs and TV shows try to handle similar situations, and they just botch it, or they don't make it look right. And in Game of Thrones, it did look right. And then it ended with a really exciting piece of dialogue where it said, "Shall we begin?" So now the battle begins, and can't wait to look forward to can't wait to look forward to episode 2 of Game of Thrones and see what happens next. This was that transitional episode, or that bridge between the last episode of season 6 and what's going to happen in season 7. So now we're moving past everything that we know of Game of Thrones, and we're going into a new direction. I think the show now is going to move faster and it's going to hit harder, and I can't wait to see what happens in episode 2. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening to this podcast, and till next time.